Hello and welcome to the Foxcatcher Preview Show. My name is Julian Bellis, joined up in Sydney by Nick Ashman. How are you, Nico?
I'm very good. I got the Christmas lights up on Monday and everything was going really well. And then on Tuesday morning, I got asked about some more chores around the house and I thought to myself, all of that money I spent on Christmas lights didn't get me very far. So that's okay. We take stock. We move on. We've got a good weekend coming up. Winterbottom Stakes, you'll talk to Dan a little bit later on. Up here, we've got the Festival Stakes, which, of course, is a big lead up to the Ingham Stakes, which, of course, is the qualifier for the Doncaster. And we've got one of my favourite races of the year, even though it's not a Group 1, the Zipping Classic down your way, with, of course, the old champ winning it 4 years in a row back in the mid-2000s.
He was a ripper, was Zipping. We'll get to that shortly. And just on Christmas, I've decided this year to go with a black tree. So read into that what you want, but I think it sets up pretty well for me. Let's get to Caulfield. Out 9 metres the entire circuit. Look, I've got here for the punters out there good/soft range, because if we get the rain that's predicted sort of Friday night, Saturday race day, then I think we're going to drip into this soft range. So just be mindful of that. Also be mindful of the 20 to 30 kilometre southerly wind. Caulfield shoot, that's going to be a tailwind in that shoot. So they're going to get, those leaders are going to get a little bit of an advantage, I think. So in terms of how I think it's going to play, forward of midfield an advantage for the shoot, 1,000 to 1,200 metre races at Caulfield. First few in running. The ROI is big, especially in this setup with the rail out and possibly if we get into the soft range as well with the southerly kicking up. That's where I want to be. Circle race is 1,400 metres plus. It sits into a little bit of it's all okay, even across the board. You got any lane stuff there for Caulfield, mate, that you could add to that?
Yeah, do. Just having a look here. Should play just off rail with lanes 3 to 9 likely to provide the bulk of the winners. So tying that in with what you've said, it might be a little bit up and off. Would be the play at Caulfield on Saturday. Yeah,
no doubt. Let's get to the Zipping Classic. Let's look at the points bet market here, mate. So she's a hustler, top of the pops. Light infantry man brings the best form into, well, it brings the best weight for age form into the race next to the market. Alicante is the next one. It gets to the probably right distance range for it. It's probably ready. And then we get our double figures, sort of the rest. Speed map here is interesting, Nico. I've sort of had a crack at it, and then I can look at it and you can go, well, third up now, Alicante has to probably try and go to the front and lead. It's just where the Smoke and Romans from that wide gate presses forward. I think the first 200 metres, Alicante probably leads, but then Smoking Romans could continue to go and push past it. It's just whether that is allowed to happen. Ellen Quare probably goes forward as well. I think She's a Hustler can get the right spot. To be honest, a perfect scenario, I think, for, say, a She's a Hustler is Smoking Romans ends up getting past Alicante, and then Alicante then goes and sits outside Smoking Romans, and then She's a Hustler gets the back of it. I think Life Infantry Man, it's been forward, back, but I think getting to trying to get 2,400 metres deep into the prep for this horse, I think they probably go back. What have you got in terms of maybe if you looked at the map, what do you thought might happen? I know you've seen that horse, Alicante, a little bit more than me.
I think you're right that up to 2,400 metres, what they'll want to do is make sure they can press the button when they're ready. She's not a sit and sprint style of mare, but Smoking Romans has led in 3 of his last 4 runs over this distance. And the only time he didn't lead was in the Mornington Cup where he finished second. I think Banker's Choice might have led that race and won it. But and he's had good results. He's finished in the top 4 in all of those last 4 runs at this distance. So even though probably as a younger horse, we sort of had him pegged as more of a 2,000 metre horse, certainly as he's gotten older, he's found the 2,400 right up his alley. So I think you're right. They probably come across with him. What makes it interesting, what makes me not be able to rubber stamping as the leader is, will they be content on Alicante sitting leaders back? And that'll probably depend on how much respect they've got for Smoke and Romans. He's a $31 chance in the race on Saturday. Look, on his best 2,400 metre form, he's probably a touch over the odds, but he's coming back from a Melbourne Cup, and if they sort of feel as though he could be a bit of a speed hump, then they might think, nah, we've got to go forward and try and lead here. That's if she's got the pace to actually kick up and lead. So I think the first 200 or 300 metres of this race is going to be pretty interesting.
Yeah, and I think it sort of ends up being a really genuinely run race, I think, because of this factor. I don't think Smoking Romans, if it does find the front, is going to then like try and put the brakes on at any stage. It's not really his go. So I think there's enough sort of pressure outside of these horses to create a genuine tempo. And then it sort of becomes for the punter out there, you go, well, Light Infantry Man is a 2,000 metre Group 1 winner, Australian Cup winner at Flemington. He's ran behind Via Sestino, ran in the Cox Plate. He brings the best form line. It's just whether you think he can get 2,400 metres, and I think it's going to be a genuine tempo. Then you've got to overlay that with the fact is this an afterthought for this horse as well? Are they just sort of going to the well again? And then you go, well, I know the horses that are on the up are probably Alicante, who's only third up in its prep, and She's a Hustler, who's just a lightly raced horse and is only fourth up here. You think, we still don't know where the ceiling is for that horse in particular. So I think that's what the punters have to try and figure out, whether some are over the top and whether some are good enough getting to weight for age, possibly for the first time against horses like Light Infantry Man. Did you want to do anything with the race overall, mate?
Oh, I think Alicante peaks. I'm not steaming into that, whatever she is now, 450, 480, but I don't think she'll miss top three. So if you can get sort of black figures on her running top three, which I think you will, I think that's a good bet. That third up run last campaign, when she got to, I don't know if it was it might have been second up in the Manion at 2,400 metres.
Yeah.
She just brained them by 4 and a bit lengths. She beat Athabaskan and the rest. So I think at this distance, she's the one for me, but I'm fairly certain you're keen on the other mare in the race. Yeah,
I am. She's a Hustler. I've just got a massive opinion of her. I think they've just looked after her. She has won at 2,100, but this is her first go at 1.5 miles. I think she gets the right map. I loved all her effort in the Matriarch. Yeah, we were with her and she got beaten, but she just really flattened out and still chased. I don't think she got through the ground very well at all. She can settle in the first 4 or 5. This is her moment for me. I think this is her moment against these better class horses. She can stamp herself as a serious, serious contender for next year's Spring Carnival, where I think she can be a major player in a race like the Caulfield Cup. Let's get to Pin the Tail, mate. You got one back again. We're now 8 all with 2 to play. Gringotts ends up SPing. Just spat out a little bit to 245. And to be honest, the exchange was $2.70, $2.80. A bit disappointed in the PointsBet traders, to be honest. Usually they're really aggressive on these favourites. And if they were aggressive on Gringotts, well, they did the right thing, to be honest, because he ends up and wins the race. So they were very smart in doing that. You were $2.25. I was $2.80. This week we're Light Infantry Man. Very quickly for me, look, he does bring the best weight for age form. It's just whether he can get 2,400 metres. I've marked him $4.50. You're a little bit bigger.
Yeah, I am. 2 things are going to happen here. The rain doesn't come, the track stays dry, and what will happen is, as we've identified, it might just favour those horses forward of midfield in the first few positions. As the meeting progresses, that'll see the tempo of each race just lift a little bit on what it should be under its natural situation, if you like. And that would then mean that this race might be run a little bit faster than we think. And I think the map guys will look at that and go, that's now a greater risk for Light Infantry Man, who probably just wants an even run 2,400 metres. The other side is if the rain does come, then I think it's going to make it a bit of a testing 2,400 metres in terms of the ground. And I think that works against him because his best figures are on top of the ground. So I've pushed him out to $5.
Beautiful. That's Pin the Tail this week. Let's get to my Victorian set, obviously, for Caulfield. Race 5, number 1, Different Gravy. Outstanding when Zara went on over the Flemington Carnival. Just got a great turn of foot. Now, you could suggest that this horse is a big track horse. All the big numbers have been on big tracks like Flemington. But I just think from gate 5, he went all the way back last start, but he did draw 15. So I don't think he has to get all the way back. I think this race has got a really long tail, and I just like the fact that he can be probably settle close to midfield. If he does, his turn of foot will get him out of trouble. I'm with Different Gravy in race 5. Race 7, number 1, Kingswood. Outstanding performance again over the Flemington Carnival. Don't reckon they've found the bottom of this horse yet, even though it was a really big number. I think it can hold that number. That's all it needs to do. I'm not suggesting it goes again, but it's only 4th up here. I want to be with Kingswood. Race 8, we spoke about the Zipping Classic. She's a hustler. I'm just mad keen on this horse going forward. I think she's got great upside. And in race 9, number 7, Major Share Each Way. It's just a horse that's probably got the better figures at 1,000 metres, but I'm okay here at 1,100. A few of these are going to get back. And just around Caulfield, with the way I think this track's going to play, it might settle in the first 4 or 5, or I think it definitely will settle in the first 3. Have the map advantage, and it's going really well. 54.5 kilos, Major Share Each Way. I'm going to be having a crack. That's my Victorian set. All right, Nico, let's get to your New South Wales flavour. We're obviously at Rosehill, true position the entire circuit. I think you've got better conditions weather-wise up there, so we're going to be on a good 4 throughout. What do you think? How do you think this track's going to play for the punters out there?
Should be a little bit off rail at Rosehill on Saturday. It just does depend on how much irrigation, how much of a drink they give it. If they don't give it much irrigation, it'll play quite warm just with that beaming sun that's coming down over the next few days into Saturday and on Saturday itself. So it might be, we're sort of thinking lanes 4 and beyond, but because we're expecting the track to play reasonably quick again, caveat on the irrigation, you're looking at lanes 5 to 10, not much wider than 10, just because you're going to be conceding ground to horses that are racing on going that is just as good as where you are. So I think what you'll see is not an up and off track, because I'm not necessarily saying you need to be up, but definitely off rail. And you maybe, if they don't get much irrigation on the track or don't put much on, you mightn't want to be too far off the pace. So midfield and maybe a touch forward of a slight advantage against the back markers, if that makes sense.
Just on a point of the Festival Stakes, I see, I don't know, you might have some intel here. I saw it was a listed race and now it's been upgraded to a Group 3. Anything doing there, mate?
The talk of the town at the moment, obviously, in racing is these upgrades that Racing New South Wales have given races without the international approval. No idea if this is one of those races. I haven't followed it closely enough, but it is a bit of an issue for the industry, without getting too political in this show. If we are upgrading races, the Asian Patent Committee has actually asked for a little bit of a please explain as to why we are upgrading races without that international approval. There's no threats being made, but there is the possibility, if you keep going down this path, that you get relegated from Part 1 of the Blue Book down to Part 2, and that has some pretty catastrophic effects for us.
PointsBet market for the Festival Stakes. Yorkshire favourite, accredited. Next, bit of a gap there, and then we sort of have another gap sort of out towards horses like Arctic Glamour and then Waterford. What's your speed map look like here? Because it's a big field.
Yeah, it is, and it's always tricky with these big fields. And again, I can't stress enough intent from trainers and connections. But I think Robusto, I think he leads from a soft gate, and I think Magneteer will sit on his outside. Now, those two I'm pretty confident will be settling first and second. I think Yorkshire has to try and hold leaders back. He's certainly got enough early toe to be there, Jules. I think the surprise packet in my speed map for a lot of punters at home is Melody again and McHale. Now, Melody again traditionally settles off speed, but I think she's got the chance to put herself in the 1 out, 1 back spot when I look at her natural raw speed. And that's not looking at where they tend to position her. It's just looking at her breaking down her 200-metre splits and saying, well, she can actually be there without being much outside her comfort zone. I think it's a good spot for her. She's a mare that's on an upward spiral in terms of her ratings. She won a Group 3 or Group 2 Dark Jewel Classic at Scone before a short let-up. And I think she was pretty good the other day at Hawkesbury, so she can be there. McHale's the other one. I think it comes across, probably doesn't quite have the same amount of speed as her, but it can settle 3 back the rail. I don't mind that spot for him if you're a McHale fan, because then he just follows Yorkshire through. He just says, righto, Yorkshire, wherever you go, I'm going to go, and I'm going to try and get off your back and blouse you late. Not a bad spot to be.
Yep.
And then the credit for my mates at Proven probably comes across with McHale and drops in that 1 out, 2 backs position. The rest from there, look, Pounce maybe ends up 3 wide, no cover. You can sort of see my 3 wide lane there, all the way going back. Not much more I can add. Look, take that with a grain of salt. It's always hard with these big fields, but I'm pretty confident of those, at least the leaders. And I reckon if they've got their wits about a Melody again and McHale, maybe take up a more forward position than what they traditionally do.
Genuine tempo, though. I mean, do you think that with those horses, especially with that wide horse, say Magneteer coming over, there has to be some genuine tempo there early doors at least?
I think it does early doors. So the 1,500-metre start's a very fair start, Jules. So I think there's not going to be a mad rush. I mean, it's a big field, so they need to get across, but they've got sort of, 400 or so metres before they hit that top corner. And so it's a fairly fair start. So I think the risk is that they get to where they're settled,
get their
and
spots.
then they might just get their spots and just hold up for 1 or 2 sections. If they do that, then I think those horses at the back of the field probably have their chances diminished, and it becomes more of a stalker's race.
Yep.
But I'm hopeful that won't happen, and I'm hopeful that some of these other horses will say, well, we can't have a bar of this. We need to make sure it's genuinely run.
Do you have an opinion on if you want to play in the race at all, or is it a bit too tough for you?
So, look, it's a tough race, but I'll make a couple of comments. On Yorkshire, you got to remember he pulled up with cardiac arrhythmia first up in that Hunter. it's a total forgive. What I took out of the race was that he was very firm, first up at 1,300 metres in one of the toughest assignments he's had in his career. So that tells me that the trial data guys, and he looked good in a trial, the trial data guys, and there are good judges out there, probably had his trial going very well. And also suggested that what he'd done in the previous preparation was good enough to measure up at that level, which means it's good enough for this race as well. So I don't know if I like leaders back for him, and I just want to touch back on that speed map again. If they do slow up mid-race and they start to creep up 3 wide and maybe even 4 wide down the side, all of a sudden he's in behind Robusto and Magneteer with not much room to get out.
Yeah.
And if they've pulled up mid-race, they're going to have a kick into the home straight. It could get a bit messy for him. The one I think you can spec at a price, and she's in my bets, is Mare of Mount Buller, and she's around that 30-1 mark. She, probably needs to go to a new peak here, but while I followed her progression last preparation, and she's on that upward spiral. She ran 5th in the Queensland Oaks. Now, I know it doesn't mean a huge amount when you go to 1,500 metres against older horses, but for Waller to take her to that level as a 3-year-old means he had a bit of an opinion of her. She was second to Scarlet Oak when Scarlet Oak was racing well in the Doom and Roses. So I feel as though she might just have a bit of upside about her. She's not in the markets for the Ingham, but it wouldn't surprise me to see her at least run a good race here, and maybe be a fluker's hope in the Ingham in a few weeks' time, although I do think Savage would be very hard to beat in that race.
Give me your set, mate, for Rosehill.
So we start with race 6. Go down to number 20, Deal Me a Queen, obviously a daughter of Dundeel, trained by Paul Massara up at Scone. She was caught wide for most of her recent run at 2,200 metres at Scone. She was coming off a good grinding 1,700 metre win at Musselbrook, the run before that, where she took most of the straight to get there. Everything in her sectional says she's an out-and-out stayer. The fact that she had to then go from 1,700 plus 500 metres to 2,200 and sit wide, no cover around 2 bends, basically. She sort of got in for part of the race, but it was not a good look. And she was still there whacking away at the finish. She drops 10 kilos after the claim into this race, which for stayers is a massive amount to drop. So I've got her rating boosting through the roof off the back of that. Yep. And I think she's a terrific each-way bet at double figures. On to race 7, number 17, Mare of Mount Buller, for all the reasons that I just mentioned. And then race 9, number 13, God's Window. Couple of runs at 2,400 metres. We tipped him last time out in the Beaufort at Newcastle. He did the same thing as he did at Bendigo, and that was he wanted to over-race. I think Wallace said, okay, I think you're a 2,400 metre horse, but just at this stage of your career while you're learning your craft, I'm going to bring you back to 2,000 metres. The natural pace of the race is a little bit quicker, might help him drop his head. I'm convinced the horse is going well. K-Max Sticks, he's a bet for mine.
All right, punters, time now to obviously head west with our man, Daniel Cripps. Dan, how are you, mate?
G'day, Jules. Going well, thanks, mate. And week 3 of the Pinnacles, second Group 1 of the calendar year. And what a race this Winterbottom is shaping out to be, a clash of 2 absolute WA superstars. And yes, I am claiming Overpass as one of our own because we've seen him here that many times. So this is, got to be box office, and I can't wait to dissect it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's East versus West, mate. We're going to claim him as our Eastern side, even though he's New South Wales and I'm Victorian. I'm still going to claim him. So you can have Joker's grin all the way to the bank. In terms of this track, mate, out 8 metres the entire circuit, as you said, third week of the Pinnacles. Good for. The intel we've got is, look, lane 1 a small penalty, but I don't think there's really any disadvantage there. Lanes 3 to 7 possibly an advantage, and stalking and sort of, those midfield runners suited. But wind might be an impact for you and how you sort of treat this meeting going forward?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm going to be singing from the same hymn sheet as I have been the last fortnight. Wind is everything for me at Ascot. I'm not too focused on individual lane bias, but we've got a pretty decent southwesterly forecast on Saturday that will only strengthen as the meeting progresses. If it does get as strong as what they're saying, up to kind of 25 to 30 kilometres per hour, that will definitely have some impact on those horses racing without cover, which really does make it interesting for a horse like Overpass.
So what kind of wind is that? Is that headwind sort of around the back? And then obviously, I don't know, cross them or something in the straight, which doesn't really have any impact. It's sort of that first 400 to 600 metres. Is that where the impact is?
Yeah, exactly right. So it's a headwind down the back straight, and even as they start to make the bend, and yeah, it is our sea breeze, so we do see it quite a lot. But basically, the leaders have to punch into it down the back straight, and then obviously horses with cover get that nice trail, and it just it makes it a little bit harder for leaders. On the contrary, if you ever see a day at Ascot where you have an easterly, that normally just turns out to be leaders' paradise because they get blown along down the back straight, and it's really hard to make ground.
We just don't make light of this. This is really important stuff. We talk about it a lot, Dan, obviously with the Caulfield track with the chute and the northerly versus the southerly. It's also the fact that if this really kicks up, jockeys actually then start to ride for cover as well. So the race shape changes within itself as well when this kicks up because they don't want to be out there punching that breeze as you've spoken. So it is really important, and if it does get up to that 25 plus that you suggest, it is going to have impact on how these races are run and eventually won. Let's get to the Winterbottom Stakes. This is the feature, obviously, the Group 1 at Ascot this week for the PointsBet market. And to be honest, mate, I'm just going to focus on the two horses because that's where sort of the market is really generating towards, and it's a bit 6 or 7, as they would suggest in the young kids would say. It's Overpass and Joker's Grin. Joker's Grin went up favourite, then Overpass has sort of joined it. I don't know which way it's going to end up going. And then you're sort of a bit further out, big break to sort of horses like Luana Miss, the 3-year-old filly, which you identified as the winner, end up starting $1.50 in the Placid Arc. Speed map, mate, Overpass gets a bit of a loose lead.
Yeah, this looks a really good setup for Overpass. I think this is the 6th time that he's been to WA, and I'm fairly certain that this is the best map he's ever seen out here in the West. So from barrier 2, he will jump straight to the front. The only other pressure I can really see is Oscar's Fortune, but Chris Parnham, he's a jockey who he isn't that aggressive on the on-pace runners, and he will know full well that his best chance of running a good race on Oscar's Fortune is not to go and try and take Overpass on because he knows how that will end. So he'll happily raid outside the leader and just be there and try and, get dragged into the race by Overpass. So Josh Parr's he should really have a bit of a field day out in front where he's going to be able to control the sectionals and pick his moment when he does really ramp up the tempo. In saying that, as we know, Overpass isn't a horse who wants to make it a sit sprint, so he's still going to be bowling along at some bold fractions. But I can't really see him getting taken on in the race.
Joker's Grin, can this horse settle a little bit closer? We've seen it sort of this prep that it seems to get all the way back. It's not a big field here. It's sort of drawn middle of the road there with 6. Can they just pinch a pair maybe a little bit closer than some expect?
Yeah, I don't see why not. This is, as we said, Overpass a really good draw, but Joker's Grin's also come up with a really good alley for him in barrier number 5. So he could be 1 out, 2 back, maybe with a couple of runners behind him, and that looks a really suitable map for him as well. So you think that both the favourites, they're going to definitely get their chance.
You've spoken about Overpass. I think this is his 6th run over there. It's really interesting in how Bjorn Baker has prepped this horse up for Ascot for these kinds of races. Obviously the Winterbottom and obviously the Quackerine early in the year. So he's off 42 days here off his Everest 4th, which is probably as good a run as he's sort of done coming into the race. Quacker 2025, he was only off 21 days where he got knocked off and ran 5th, I think, behind obviously Joker's Grin. Last year he was off 21 days. Quacker 2024, he was fresh off 140 days, Dan. And then 2023, this race, he was off 49. And the Quacker 2023, he was fresh off 154. Off 42 days here. Do you like that setup for him?
Yeah, definitely. It's been pretty well documented by Josh Parr and the camp that he does his best work fresh. So as you said, the first 3 times that he came to WA, he was either first up or fresh, and he toyed with WA rivals. When he won his second Winterbottom, he was off for 21 days, as you said. And look, I know he got the job done, but Josh Parr said after the race, after 100 metres, he actually thought he was in a world of hurt. He didn't have the same horse underneath him. Class prevailed, and he was able to get the win still. In saying that, if you go back and watch the replay, there was a horse, the name escapes me, but another raider who missed the kick and probably shouldn't have beaten him that day. And then, as you said, Quacker earlier in the year, again, came over off 21 days, and we just did not see the same horse as what we're used to out here in the West. So this is the key for him. Back to the 42 days between runs, I reckon. And from all reports, his track work on Tuesday was as good as it's ever been at Ascot. So I reckon we're going to see the best version of Overpass again, which is exciting.
Do you want to be with him, mate?
Out of the 2, I'm definitely team Overpass. At the moment, $2.70 on points, but I think he's a fair price. It's slightly over mine. My two reservations are, one, the win that we just spoke about, and two, there's been a couple of scratchings in the race, which, look, both of those horses would have been 100 to 1 plus in the market. Not that they would have affected Overpass's race, but they actually would have been some nice roadblocks for Overpass where they're just two extra animals that Joker's Grin's going to have to potentially go around. So the small field, I think, slightly brings Overpass's rivals into it a little bit more. But yeah, in saying that, I still think he's going to get a good lead and he's going to be awfully hard to get past in the straight. So at the moment, I'm just umming and ahhing about what I do, whether I make him a full play or I'm just sort of maybe had something on, but it's probably just going to be determined. Just keep an eye on that win forecast for me.
Very quickly, mate, race 8. I know you've got 2 plays here. You want to be against the fave?
That's right. So race 8's the Jungle Dawn Classic. Now, I'm going to be with the 2 class horses. The first one being Bonjoy. Look, she's a dead set winner. She's won 11 from 22 career starts. Connections and her stable would have been hopeful they were going to run in the Group 1 Railway last week. Unfortunately, they just couldn't get her into the race by winning one of the lead-up events, but she was far from disgrace. At her last 2 in particular, she drew low, just couldn't get any momentum or flow into the turn, but she was still only beaten 2 back in particular, less than a length behind Watch Me Rock, who obviously came out and won well last Saturday in the Group 1. So consolation price for her now. She drops back to the Mares Series, drawn barrier 8. I think she can get in that 3 deep line with cover, peel to the outside. I reckon she's going to be pretty hard to hold out. She's actually one who's got a really strong starting price profile. So she's a horse I've never really been able to find, but at $4.20 on points, but at the moment, she's definitely a bet for me. And I want to save on the number 2, Love and War, at $6. You could actually argue she's potentially going better than Bonjoy in the same lead-up races as to what we just spoke about. The one problem with her is she'll end up coming into barrier 15. So I don't know what Clint Johnson Porter is going to do, which, by the way, is a significant jockey upgrade, but he's in ripping form. The stable and the colours are going great. So he might even chance his hand and try and ride her a little bit more positive. So, yeah, I'm happy to play those 2. And while I've got no knock on Yorga Pride, I just reckon while she's favourite, we can look at playing the other 2.
Love it. Great analysis as always, Dan. Good luck on the weekend, mate, and we'll see you next week.
What are you really gambling with? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.